What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Dual Sport Disc Sport channel. If this is your first time here and you like what you see today, make sure you subscribe. I have a ton of cool content coming out. Today I have the Segway X260. I was just at the indoor motocross track last week and I shredded the belt. I have some other maintenance things I have to do to it. I have like 250 miles on it. So a couple things we're going to do: upgrade the brakes, replace the pads, change that belt out, and also do a few other things when it comes to the safety sensors. There's nothing more embarrassing than taking my electric Segway to an indoor motocross track and having the thing shut off like 6 times in one practice when I'm trying to go around the track, compete with these gas-powered bikes. So I'm pretty sure it's the tip-over sensor. We're going to unplug it, and hopefully the next time I go out there, I can actually give some competition to these gas-powered pit bikes. And I'm not that guy on the side of the track having my headlight flicker and the bike not even working at all. So we'll see how this goes. I'm hoping it works. This is the belt I'm going to put on. I ordered 2 of these off of Amazon. I'll put the link in the description below. But looking at the belt, it's actually made in the USA. So maybe it's going to be pretty good. We'll see. I'm just really hoping it lasts longer than the stock one. If it doesn't last, I'm probably going to have to go to a chain and sprocket conversion. These are the brake pads we're going to be putting on, and coming from a motocross background, these things are just tiny. I mean, compare this little thing to a dirt bike brake pad. Got the Husky stuff here. That's the back ones. These are the fronts. So it's just a big change. These were $10 in 2021 pricing, and they came from Lunicycle. Got the tools laid out here. Couple Allen head sockets, and then a couple wrenches, hammer, and then this we're going to use to pound the swing arm out, the swing arm bolt. So battery impact as well. I'm going to break all the bolts loose by hand first and then use the battery impact afterwards. Sometimes if you put that thing on too soon, it'll just round those things off and you're totally screwed, so don't do that. I'm going to start with the belt. That's the biggest project, so I want to get that out of the way. First thing I'm going to do is pull the battery out. Going to make sure that breaker's turned off. I already had it turned off. And then just going to unplug these 2 things and then just pull the battery right out. Lightens the bike up, makes it so you can actually get in there and work. Going to start here with the back wheel. Now before I take the wheel off, I am going to pull this brake caliper off. So I'm going to just break the wheel loose first though. That's a 17 millimeter. If the axle nut is spinning, this is a 6 millimeter. I'm going to just tap it in to make sure it's in all the way. And it went in there like a 1/4 inch more than initially. So definitely make sure you have those in all the way, or else once they're stripped out, it's a pain in the butt to do anything with them. And now it's stuck in there. So I guess we're just going to leave that in there for now. Next we're going to move on to the caliper. This is a 5 millimeter for the caliper. And I'm just going to do the same thing. Make sure it's in there all the way. Maybe just a light tap. And then break it loose by hand. This one here, it's a little harder because that caliper kind of touches. So you definitely got to hammer this one down. All right, we're in business. This zip tie is something I like to do. This brake line here on my other bike, the 160, I had this brake off here. The brake line was flapping around, got into the tire and ripped it right in half. So now I run a zip tie here just to make sure it doesn't flap into the tire. I'm also going to pull this little clamp off here because we're going to be removing the swing arm as part of this, and it's just going to be easier. The last one we did was a pain in the butt having the brake line on, so just taking it off, throwing it over the seat just keeps it out of the way. Next I'm going to pull the swing arm, which is going to enable me to pull the belt out. I'd still have to remove this cover here, but this is a 5mm, so it's very important to make sure that that thing is seated all the way. It really should be something like a 6 or an 8mm, something way larger than that, because you know this is a decent amount of torque you got to put on this. The other side, I do not have the special tool for that nut, so I'm just going to use a pair of channel locks, but definitely don't want to use an impact on this the first time to get it loose. People might laugh about my bucket, but this bucket right here works better than a dirt bike stand, I'm telling you. The little lip on here really helps out. I'm just going to pull these off here and throw some grease in that and then put it back together. Okay, these bushings right here, if you do happen to drop them and can't figure out where they go, it's the long one that goes on the sprocket side. The shorter one goes on the belt drive pulley side. To make it easier for me, I just pulled the chain off. I think it's going to make a world of difference. So we'll just put the chain on when we're done. The goal here is to make sure that these bushings don't pop out. They're a pain. The last one we did, that's what held us up the whole time, was getting the swing arm back on. So hopefully this one goes a little bit quicker. I'm just going to try to get those lined up into the swing arm and then set that into where it goes on the frame. Just by kind of guessing, I think the tension feels pretty good, so we're going to run it and put this cover back on. Now, if you've ever messed with your Surron before or Segway, you know that a lot of the bolts come out, so I'm going to put a little bit of blue Loctite on these before I put it back on. Okay, it's time to go back on with these plastic bushings. Now before I put this back on, there is a set of roller bearings in here I'm going to lubricate as well, but be careful if you pull that off because they can come out. So I'm just going to pull it like halfway, throw some grease in there, spin it around, and call it a day at that. I don't think there's a bearing up here in the top. I'm pretty sure that's just a bushing, so good to note for the future. Okay, back to the 6mm. Just going to snug these up. All right, well, the hard part is all done. Now I just got to put the brake line back on and put the back wheel on, put the chain on, and we're good to go. All right, onto the wheel. Nice. On this little bracket here for the caliper, there is a groove right here, and it slides on to a groove on the swing arm. So it's important to make sure that's lined up. If this is your first time doing this, and just going to slide it up, put the axle in, and then I'm putting the chain on afterwards. Moving on to the pads, these are pretty much mountain bike brake pads, so a lot of people run like Shimano's. There's a little Allen head here I got to pull out. Going to loosen that up, and then the pad should come right out. Well, just ran into an interesting fact. I went to change these out, and here the brake pads I took off say 890E on them, and so do the ones that I was going to upgrade to. Again, these are the upgraded pads from Luna Cycle, so maybe the Surron doesn't come with the upgraded pads, but the Segway does. Not totally sure, but now I'm not going to be changing those pads out. So, before I tighten this down, I'm just going to spin the wheel and hit the brake a few times, and then I'm going to hit the brake and I'm going to hold it. And hopefully that's going to center the caliper, because they are a little bit loose. They have an adjustment on them where you can slide it back and forth. So just holding it down while I do this. Good to go. With this master link, it's always a good idea to make sure that the curved edge is facing the direction of travel for the chain. If not, if it's facing with the clip open, it can pop off when you hit a stick or some debris. So just make sure that round edge is facing whichever way the chain is traveling. Well, of course I can't find the bolt for that, so I'm going to have to go to the hardware store tomorrow and get one, but don't want to forget my zip tie either. This is just a backup. All right, we're making some progress now. That sums it up for the belt. All changed out for that, ready to hit the track on Friday. Gonna head back to Ram Jam. Now we're gonna take out the tip over sensor. We're just gonna unplug it. Gonna go through what it takes to remove that thing, and hopefully that's gonna solve my shutoff issues with the bike. All right, so some people might do it a different way, but the way I'm going to get to the tip over sensor is I'm actually going to pull the controller down. So I'm going to start here with the top. This is an M5, so I'm going to loosen up the tops on both sides. Then I'm going to go down here, loosen these two bolts, and then there's two little cover bolts right here, and then I should be able to just pop that down and the tip over sensor will be right there. Watch out, boy. The bottom two are a 4mm, just so you're aware. All right, so now that I have the bolts loose, just going to slide that controller forward, and then I'm also going to pop this backwards. That whole assembly will just pop out. This lifts up, and then I can reach in there and grab the sensor. Now, I already unplugged this one time, so I'm just kind of doing this to show how I did it before. Do this at your own risk. This is my bike. I'm taking mine off. I'm not suggesting that you do it to yours. That is totally, entirely up to you what you do with your own machine. But the way I did it to mine is it's the 3-pronged one. I just unplugged it and then taped it up. So I'm going to pack it all back up in there and put it back together. I have heard of some people just taking the top off where the key's at and down here by the horn and pulling that apart that way. That is an option, but I just figured it was better and more effective for me to take it off, so that way I could really see what the bike was kind of made of inside that area. Bike's all back together. Just going to throw the battery in this thing and hopefully it still works. All right, let's see how this back wheel does. Looking good so far. I see my wheels just a little bit out of true. I have tightened the spokes a couple times. Man, that thing is peppy. Can't wait to get it on the track again. Gonna try out this tip over sensor here. We'll see what it does. Okay, everything still works. So I'm not too concerned about the tip over sensor with my bike, mainly because I'm running these bark busters here, and this will help prevent the throttle sticking if it was to be tipped over. Without the bark busters and the bike tips over, there is a chance that the throttle could stick wide open, and there's always that risk that you could be near the tire. So definitely do any mods at your own risk. I, however, think I'm going to like it. Last thing I'm going to do before my next ride is the brake line routing. So this front brake line is not routed correctly. This clamp, it's supposed to slide up and down through that clamp, but it's not, and it just bends. Like the lower portion of the brake line, you can see when the fork compresses, it just bends straight out instead of travels up through that. And I think part of the reason is because whoever put this bike together actually put the brake line behind the number plate. So I'm going to pull that out. Also, it looks like I got some rubbing there, so I'm going to see about addressing that while I have this number plate off. I'm going to put a little tape on this area, have some rubbing, and then the number plate's good to go back on. Okay, we'll see next ride if that's going to make a difference or not. I'm hoping it will. I just saw my buddy, his fork guard broke off on his, and I'm hoping mine doesn't do the same thing. I think part of it was due to the brake line flexing, so hopefully it actually travels up and down now. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. Hopefully this helps you out. If you like what you see, make sure you subscribe. I'm going to be taking this thing to the track next week, so that video is going to be coming out here pretty soon. Hopefully I can shred those pit bikes and not have any problems with this belt like I did last week. Thanks for watching.